first time I smoked was, I think, in 1979. I was like 13 years old, and I was in seventh grade. And, me and my friend went out, show, for making money, people sidewalks and everything. And as we were going, we cut through the backwoods, and he pulled out a joint, and we smoked it. So that was, the first, and I got like kind of silly high, or, I didn't really know what to make of it. And then probably the next time I smoked it was probably the next year when I was in eighth grade. Uh, we bought like a nickel bag, and we smoked like, I don't know, a few bowls out of it. And then we were down by a river, and like a bunch of older kids came around, and someone was like, "Oh, who's got weed for sale?" And then my friend whipped out the bag, and he's like, "Oh, I'll give you $15 for it." And we were like, "Yeah, yeah," And then we got, out of $5, we got $15, so we got $5 each. So that I guess was my first, official sale into the business. And then really that didn't really become really a main user until I got into high school. When I got into high school, kids were smoking weed every day, before school, at lunchtime, and after school. So, that became like a daily ritual when I got into high school. And so, really just, you know, being, starting to, love weed and everything, obviously you started buying it and selling it to your friends and everything. So really, I got really into the business, just really like buying and selling weed as I got out of high school. And then I started getting connections in New York City. And so I just started, as I got older, I started to step it up more and more.
Okay,
So
cool.
where did you kind of go from buying and selling to cultivating?
Well, that came in much later because, as I, started buying and hanging around New York City more, I started to learn some of the local spots where you could, sell weed. And so, that was that up in Central Park. So that's where, I started hanging out up there. And I met the Weasel up there, and he was the very first person that I met that grew weed. So, me and him became really good friends. And, essentially, he's the one that brought the 91 Chem and the Super Skunk to New York, probably back in 92, 93. And then, the sours usually came out of the 91, but the guys brought it up to, then they crossed it with something supposedly. And, that really, so he, he built the foundation sour, but someone else really kind of continued it on to what it's known today. And so, I started, hanging out with him, and then I started, just getting tips on how to grow, and I started getting an interest in growing. And, he gave me my very first clones back in 1999. And that's when I officially, had like, a grow room, and was producing, some smokable weed.
Nice. So Weasel basically brought over the 91 Chem and the Super Skunk, and then other people used those to create Sour Diesel.
Well, yeah, well, somehow I think the Super Skunk, some type of Super Skunk cross, got into the 91, because the weasel was making seeds back then, and I think some stuff accidentally got pollinated. And I remember he had a big batch of weed that he was selling that was really seeded. And then even in the 91, sometimes you would just find a random seed or two,
Right.
but I think those guys wound up having the Albany crew. I think they wound up having like it wasn't just one seed, it was like a bunch of different, I don't know exactly how many, but it was, maybe six, or I can't really say, but it was, I know it wasn't a lot. So, uh, but it was really what those guys did with those seeds that they found initially that made the sour.
Got it. So it was the Albany crew with some sort of cross-pollinated seeds that they got from Weasel's grow with super.
Right, just bag seed, but back then, if you had a bag of really good weed and you found a few seeds, you were psyched, especially if you were a grower, because there was no place to buy seeds, other than Amsterdam. So, a lot of those bags were bought Grateful Dead lot, with Kind Bud, and just traveling hippies that were selling, Kind Bud, and then you just found some seed in it, and it became the Shoreline, it became the RFK, it became, wherever you found, or whatever show you found those seeds at, that's what you would reference those seeds to.
That's cool. Some good dead lore. So, where did the New York City sour come in? That
Well, I mean, that's essentially just the sour diesel that came down, through AJ originally. So, there's been a lot of renames on the original sour. I know that there's like kind of like a couple different versions supposedly, but I can't verify anything other than the clone that I got, through AJ himself, so
and
you know
is AJ from the Albany crew?
no, he associated with them and them weed and bought weed, but he was kind of his own
Got
crew.
it. And did he also get own like seed from Weasel and kind of like pop the seeds, you think? Or do you think he got it from the Albany people?
He got it from the Albany people, but I think he gotten seeds, found a seed or two like everyone else, and he might have grown it or tried to, but nothing ever, the AJ Sour did not come out of that really. It was a cut that was handed down to him in, I think, 95.
That makes sense. Handed down to him probably from the Albany crew. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, from Vondo. Vondo.
Vondo. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. That's okay, cool. Sweet.
But no, actually, he did get a cut from those guys. It was a version of the sour, but it wasn't the AJ sour. Actually, he just tells a story recently that I saw that, because there was a lot of competition back then. So they gave him like the number two. They didn't give him the number one. But what happened was a friend of his down in Manhattan, he wanted to grow, and he knew the Albany guys. So AJ helped. AJ built the grow for him in his apartment and set it up, turnkey basically. Then that guy went up to the Albany crew and got the number one cut of the sour, and then he brought it down, and he, for helping him, that guy gave AJ the number one. But I think the number two might be referred to as the headband maybe today.
Yeah, it's
You know,
confusing, huh?
Yeah, it's very confusing, and so you'd really have to reference an interview with the Albany guys themselves to get it, perfectly straight.
Got it. Okay, cool. And so you think the AJ cut probably just came from like a mixture of the number one and the number three or the number two that he had just gotten in his own grow later and kind of pheno hunted?
No, it was that cut that he got from, it was the cut that they were running, and they gave it to AJ's friend who gave it to him.
Got
So
it.
I think at that time, yeah, I'm not sure what, if he was still growing that number two one or not, but he might have stopped growing, or I'm not sure exactly, because he was originally up in the Catskills, and then I think then he moved back down to Brooklyn. So yeah, when he killed off his grow, I don't know if he brought plants down. I don't think he did, because his intention, I think, in the beginning of going to Brooklyn wasn't to grow weed. He was selling weed down there, but then eventually morphed into growing some weed down there. So yeah, I think at that time he had just cut ties with everything that he was growing. There's really no way to keep it, keep clones going back then. So yeah, so I think that he just killed it off probably.
That makes sense. Cool.
Could
Do
you
you want
tell
to jump
us?
back in, Kim? Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, do you want to jump back in, Kim? I didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt.
So could you tell us a little bit about how you got into selling your seeds online? Like,
Uh,
kind of the process,
well,
how that kind
yeah,
of came about.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, I always sold weed, so one day a guy comes in, he's like, "Yeah, do you see the sour diesel? They're talking about it online." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, there's this site called Overgrow, and you go on there, and they're talking about weed and taking pictures of weed, this and that, and this is in the early 2000s, and I wasn't really computer savvy or anything like that, but uh, I learned to navigate, you know, just to be able to, get to a website and be able to, go through it and stuff. So, I started, people were talking about the sour and everything. One guy was trying to take credit for it, and I was like, "Yo, they're talking about like what I'm living, like I wasn't growing sour, but I was buying and selling sour from people that were growing it, and I knew where originated and came from, and I didn't know the exact details, but I knew that it came, I knew the links that it came through me, personally and stuff. So, then so I started, a thread and started talking about, my story and interactions with the sour and the chem dog and super skunk and stuff like that. So, it became a part of the main community and stuff. And at that time I wasn't growing. And so, because I started growing, in 99 and 2000, and then I stopped for, I think, a year and started back up in 2002. So once I started growing, then I was able to grow pictures, show pictures, and talk about strains that I had, and there was a lot of trading back and forth, different cuts, talking to people in California, and I was in New York. And so I was like, how do you like, yeah, you just put them in the mail and they come, and you can root them. And so, to me, that was kind of like, it was like, I was like, I never heard anything that like that before. But, once I started doing it, it worked. And it was, so then that was just the very beginning of, kind of like, the trade cloning and genetics getting spread around and everything. And, I went to, so I started, doing my own thing. getting interested in the genetics, and really one of the things that really drove me to start making seeds in the beginning was like, I was always, I always sold weed, so I always knew what sold well and everything. So, a lot of times these guys would come up with this Northern Lights, and I'd be like, yeah, shit was amazing. And, everyone loved it, this and that. And I was like, what happened to it? And he'd be like, oh, we lost it. And I was like, oh man, like, you gotta be kidding me. And so there were, quite a few strains that, that the crew lost over the years for whatever reason. So when I started growing and getting these rare clones, and I know that, if I lose this, we may never, be able to get it again or whatever. And so that was really, the, preservation, I guess, was really the main motive behind, making seeds for myself, because I figure, we might not get an exact copy of what it was, but if we could get something that's 75 or 80%, that's like a home run. It will be something a little bit different, but pretty much the same. So, that was really my beginnings. And then, I was over on a different forum site, IC Mag, and that's really where I first started selling. Well, back then, like, it was either you can get seed credit or they would give you a bank transfer from England. And so back then, like, a bank transfer from England was something that just freaked me out. Like, that was something like a money transfer,
Yeah.
right to you, you know what I mean? And so I was like, there's no way I'm going to do that. So, I did send some seeds in and got like a bunch of, credit. So I was able to, buy a bunch of Dutch seeds, different hazes and different stuff that I was interested in. And so that was really my very first, even though I didn't get paid cash, I got paid in seeds. And then I moved on over to the THC farmer, and that's when, they would just, mail me cash. So that, or else I went in person and picked it up once. So, that was really when I really first started, selling seeds for cash and profit.
Okay, okay. Let's see what else do I got here. So, as far as preservation, I've got something else here. How did you feel about having to kind of switch over, like, the original diesel? It used to be ChemDawg. How did it feel that you had to switch the name to kind of appease the consumers?
Yeah, because if you said anything with chem in it, it kind of freaked people out, because like when you smelled it, it did smell like fuely, gassy, chemy, and a lot of people like, what is this? Is this sprayed? Is this grown with chemicals? So it
Right.
kind of turned a lot of people off. And I remember like smoking, a joint with someone at the club, and he's like, he's hitting the joint, and he's like, what is this? And I'm like, yeah, it's ChemDawg. He's like, what? He's like, this is chem. He's like, is this is not organic? And I'm like, no, it's the name, and he's like, no, I don't want anything to do with chemicals. So like, after that, we had to start, you know, putting other tag names on it. And back then, the name game wasn't really, really, I guess, originated in Amsterdam. Because when you would just source weed, really referred to the weed from where it came from, whatever country or whatever source or whatever. Or sometimes it just didn't have a name, but there were back then there were like Hawaiian and exotic, and they had different, cute little names they used to put on it.
Okay, okay. So did you have anything crazy happened in that time? Like it hasn't always been legal, obviously. Did you ever have any close calls?
Oh no, I've been arrested, like at least a half a dozen times, and spent a couple days in jail and had to get bailed out and all that. I always walk the fine line, and I don't know how many close calls I've had, being pulled over with a trunk load of weed and not getting searched and getting followed but not getting pulled over and without having a license and just a lot of crazy stuff like that, so back then, we were, I was a working guy, working construction every day and, trying to, make money for my family, so, you had to do what you had to do back then.
Yeah. Did you have anything to add here?
I want to ask about STARDAWG and like how it got to England. If you uh
Well, just going back to what I had said earlier about the website that I sold the seeds for the trade for seeds. I had to send those seeds to England. So the very first strain that I really made commercially, was STARDAWG, and so that was, obviously, to this day, probably one of the most popular strains that I've ever made. So, all those original STARDAWG seeds and stuff went to England, and then they sent them back to the States to the people that bought them, and so that's how that worked. But I guess originally someone up in Manchester, so that's where I think they originated in Manchester, England. So they refer to it as the Manny STARDAWG. So that's like the cut that came out of Manchester. So I don't know if it was Manchester Seeds or someone else, but that's where we can trace it back to.
cool. So just through the sales, like
Yes, through online sale, not not anything from me directly. So yeah, back then, you just did that was too risky.
got it. And then uh going back to like Weasel and the Chem 91 and stuff and the Super Skunk, do you know anything more about like how he got those cuts?
Well, he traded directly with ChemDog, who he
Uh,
met at a fish show in New York City. So I think they were playing a small club, and they bumped into each other. I guess they were both smoking weed, and when one grower meets another grower, back then it was just an exchange of information and genetics and knowledge, because you
that's
were psyched to find someone, because there was very far and few between that you can find someone that you can trust, that you were able to talk shop with.
yeah. And then so is the Super Skunk then from Amsterdam from like Seeds?
No, that originally came up from Virginia.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so that originally came up from Virginia, and then I got referred to as the Mass Super Skunk.
Got it. Okay, cool. And then I guess is there anyone else from like the Albany crew and the Sour Diesel story and AJ and stuff that you think should be mentioned or like is important to the story?
Yeah, there's a bunch of people, but I'm not intimately, you know, I don't know them, so
Got it.
I know there's Vondo,
Got
and
it.
if AJ would knows all those guys, but I never really dealt with them. I got to know Vondo. He used to come down to the club and stuff, but yeah, there wasn't, most of those guys stayed up north and stuff. I know the bro. He was the bro was part of the Albany crew. Keith Landis. Uh, so he's somebody that also. But there was a bunch of different ones, and so you'd have to refer to some of those guys.
That makes sense. Is there anyone you think you could get us in contact with from that era?
Well, I would reach out to AJ,
Okay,
and
cool.
yeah, and so he would be able to direct you to to the right people.
Okay, cool. That yeah, that would be really awesome. Do you think you could help like give us his number or something?
You could just probably contact him on Instagram,
Got it. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Sweet.
and I think he's pretty receptive and responsive on DMs. But if you do have a problem, just get back at me, and I can I
Thank
can
you.
make it happen.
Awesome. I think that's all the stuff I wanted to follow up about. Did you have anything else, Cam?
Yeah, so a couple other questions. Bringing it back to the sour diesel. What was it about sour diesel that made you kind of focus on that strain, as far as, the flavor profiles, the high, all of that? What was it about that strain that made you focus on that?
Well, it was something that was in demand. So, like, when there's a high demand for something, as a salesman, you want to be able to, meet that demand. But the reason for it, I guess, when there's a something like that, it's all about personal preference. And so I mean, with the sour, I would say, it tastes really good. So when you would smoke it, it would just give you like this kind of lemon tart diesel. It was like a layered flavor. So
Mm-hmm.
and also it was like a little more sativa, so it kind of gave you, kind of a little bit of an up kind of high that where you weren't really couch locked and stuff, and the high was, wasn't super strong, but you would get a nice buzz for an hour or two or whatever. And a lot of it depended on your tolerance. So if you were a heavy smoker and stuff, like myself, the sour was never overpowering for me. But for someone that wasn't, as a chronic smoker and stuff, and just smoked on the weekends or whatever, and it was like the perfect thing. So, and it's all up, it's all personal preference. You know, I like to smoke the sour, but I like to smoke other things too.
I'm somebody I prefer to stay a little more towards the end because I'm pretty high strung. And I have a friend who actually grows the sour diesel. And a lot of sativa strains, there's certain terps in there that can give me anxiety. And the sour diesel has been one that I've really enjoyed. And it's one, as a bud tender, I've been able to recommend a lot to, other customers, because it's something that's going to give them that energy, but you're not going to get anxiety and feel like you're going to have a heart attack.
Yeah,
And it's
well,
still,
there's that indigo edge to it.
yeah.
There's that chemi edge to it. So it's exactly where it's just gonna not it's gonna keep you kind of more centered
Hmm.
on the high, where you're not gonna get that up kind of haze kind of anxiety high like what you were describing.
Yeah, it's pretty calm and focused. That I really enjoyed about the strain. So, I think that kind of wraps up any questions I had. If you have anything else, Hugh?
I did think of one more. Sorry, just one.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you were not growing, you said you stopped for a little bit in 2000, and that's when you were like really selling a lot of the sour diesel. Who were you like? What growers were you mainly getting it from then?
Uh, I mean, I was getting it mostly from the Weasel, and then there was a couple other people that because you know, like the weasel started out, and then he kind of formed a small crew of other people that wanted to get involved with growing or was looking to move their weed through him to me or whatever. So uh, at any given time, we had maybe 5 or 6 different people that were in rotation, and a lot of these guys weren't really, they had like 5 or 6 lights, or a couple guys had 2 or 3 lights, or so everyone was just doing whatever they were able to do. There weren't any really big sophisticated 10 or 20 lighters. These were just like small operations out of people's basements and stuff like that, closets.
Got it. Okay, cool. That was my last one. That's awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Well, I guess that wraps it up.
Sweet.
Well, did you have anything you wanted to add? Anything you have going currently?
Well, what I have going currently, I guess, is, I'm doing some, obviously, I'm doing some still doing the sour line work. I'm growing out the F5s, going to make F6s and next. I'm doing some STARDAWG stuff. There was just a little blip in the whole thing, because I popped the pack and I didn't find any males, and so I mean the whole pack didn't pop, but out of like 6 or 7 plants, I didn't get any males. So I did have a little bit of STARDAWG pollen in the freezer, and I used that. So I'm just hoping that it's gonna take. So it's a little early to see. So in the next week or two, hopefully I'll see little pods starting to form on there. And if not, I guess I'll have a bunch of STARDAWG head stash to smoke.
Well, good luck on that. And maybe if you have some luck there, we can get back in touch and you can show us a little more of what you got going.
Yeah, no, definitely. Would love to.